feds had a heads up about these recordings, thanks to some of the civil lawsuits filed against Diddy, namely the one brought by Rodney Jones, also known as the producer Lil Rod. Lil Rod worked with Diddy on his Love album starting in 2022 and says he experienced months of abuse all at the hands of Diddy. In his lengthy civil suit, Lil Rod refers to these recordings saying, quote, "Mr. Combs required Mr. Jones," that's Lil Rod, "to record him constantly. Mr. Jones has secured hundreds of hours of footage and audio recordings of Mr. Combs, his staff, and his guests engaging in some serious illegal activity." Lil Rod's lawsuit also lays out some other pretty disturbing claims, like that Diddy sexually assaulted him and forced Lil Rod to have sex with a prostitute. But Lil Rod's lawsuit came out swinging in more ways than one. Not only did it shed light on the dark allegations against Diddy, but it dropped some high-profile celebrity names too. First, there's Academy Award-winning actor Cuba Gooding Jr. Lil Rod alleges Diddy was, quote, "grooming him to pass him off to his friends." This fear became reality when Mr. Combs introduced Mr. Jones to Cuba Gooding Jr. while they were on Mr. Combs' yacht. The lawsuit includes pictures of this too, showing both Diddy with Cuba and then Cuba with his arms around Lil Rod. Court docs go on to say, quote, "Cuba Gooding Jr. began touching, groping, and fondling Mr. Jones's legs, his upper inner thighs near his groin, and the small of his back, near his buttocks and his shoulders. He rejected his advances, and Mr. Gooding Jr. did not stop until Mr. Jones forcibly pushed him away." Here's former prosecutor Melba Pearson.
In the last couple of years, there were allegations against him for sexual assault. So now we had those prior allegations, and now we see him tied to this case as allegedly trying to, assault a Little Rod, assault others.
Back in 2019, Cuba was booked on misdemeanor charges of forcible touching and sexual abuse after allegedly groping a woman in Times Square. By the next year, 3 women had come forward accusing him of non-consensual sexual touching. He eventually reached a plea deal with prosecutors that required 6 months of counseling but no jail time. Just this summer, he appeared on Dan Abrams' Live, where he discussed those charges.
You pleaded guilty to a forcible touching misdemeanor in 2022, eventually led to a guilty plea of a lesser charge. A year later, you settled a federal civil lawsuit, 2 more civil misconduct lawsuits. Can you understand why some would say, don't want to cast this guy?
Sure. Listed in Lil Rod's lawsuit is Jennifer Lopez.
From the standpoint of the names of the celebrities that were tied to this, the fact that Jennifer Lopez was tied to this back when she was involved in or party to a shooting at a nightclub when she was dating Diddy, and is now alleged to have brought the gun with her to the scene and gave it to Diddy, and that's how the shooting occurred.
Lil Rod's team brings up J-Lo when establishing Diddy's history, writing his, quote, "RICO enterprise has existed for at least 20 years, dating back to the 1999 nightclub shooting in NYC, when Mr. Combs required his then-girlfriend Jennifer Lopez to transport his illegal firearm into the NYC nightclub." The court docs also allege Diddy forced his then-artist Shyne to assume responsibility for the shooting of several individuals. The shooting happened on December 27, 1999 at about 2:55 a.m. A fight broke out at a nightclub in New York City between Diddy, Jamal Barrow, who's known as the rapper Shyne, and Matthew Allen, who went by the nickname Scar. Guns were drawn and 3 people were shot. No one suffered any life-threatening injuries, and the victims were not involved in the fight. J-Lo and Diddy fled from the scene in a car, but were later arrested and charged. J-Lo's charges were dropped, but the others stuck. Diddy was acquitted, but Shyne was sentenced to 10 years in prison. He was released in 2009 and deported back to his home country of Belize. Lil Rod alleges it was Diddy who pulled the trigger, and Shyne just took the fall for him. Because of this allegation, experts like former FBI agent Bobby Chacon say investigators could take a second look at the shooting.
And whether or not if Shyne was responsible for the shooting or not, he was held accountable for it. He was charged, prosecuted, and he did a bid. So he stood on business at the time. And after doing his bid, Shyne has since got out, as everybody know, went back to his home country of Belize, and he is married, got a family, and heavily involved in politics. But if you want to know how he feeling about that shooting today, or at least as of 2 years ago, He came and did a sit-down interview about 2 years ago with Tamron Hall on the Tamron Hall show, and this is what he had to say.
You know, I think everything is about timing. And, you know, the opportunity that I have today to impact the world, everything that I've been through is really worth it. Because I'm not just a leader in Belize, but I'm a world leader, because the ideals and the principles that I represent, which is integrity, which is loyalty, which is honesty, you know, having moral turpitude.
You said two critical things, loyalty and honesty.
Yeah.
I know that you and Puffy are friends now and he has supported you, but people believe that you went to jail because you were too loyal.
You know, I think in the Belize House of Representatives, unfortunately, like most Congresses and National Assemblies, you have people that aren't loyal to their constituents and to serving the public interest. So what I've been through is not about Puff. I'm nobody's victim. That was about me. That was about my honor, my integrity, which propelled me to be exactly where I am today as a Belizean leader and a world leader, showing examples of the best that all human beings have in them as far as character and integrity, ethics, and moral. I was the voice of the voiceless. I was the voice of all those kids that were still in Brooklyn, still in Belize, still in Compton, still wherever, in urban societies where they're systematically discriminated against and subjugated and destined to spend the rest of their lives in jail or in an early grave. So when I was making music, I was making music for them. And if you listen to my first album, the first thing that I said was, you know, Dear America, I'm only what you made me. Young, black, and crazy. Please save me.
So this is Natanya Rubin. She is one of the victims from the 1999 club shooting involving Diddy and Shyne and J-Lo. She did an interview about 5 months ago with News Nation, and this is what she had to say about that night.
Sharing her story. Natanya, thank you so much for being with us. I can't imagine what you've been through since 1999 and then all the emotions that must be coming up over the last couple of days. What was your reaction, Natanya, when you saw these massive raids at P. Diddy's two homes?
First and foremost, thank you for having me. It was very emotional. In short, it was extremely emotional because it was basically it marked 25 years, a quarter of a century since this occurred. And I've had to relive this over and over again, intermittently in that time. So when I saw it, it was very cathartic because I finally felt like justice would be done. Justice would be mine and belong to all of his victims.
Yeah, and you have said since really right after the shooting that it was P. Diddy who shot you. I mean, I think you even said it to the doctor that night, right?
I said it immediately. I literally watched them pull out the guns. I've had a clear point of view. I mean, for God's sake, I got shot in my nose. I was facing them directly. I watched everything occur and have described it, you know, vehemently to all parties involved. I think in our society, we have respectability politics. There are people who want to be adjacent to power or celebrity or money, and there's a hierarchy of respectability. Because his name was more notable, he was believed rather than a victim who gave a first-hand account. By the grace of God, I survived.
Yeah, and this was also a different time. I mean, things were very, very different in 1999. I mean, did you sense right from the beginning that no one believed you?
Well, I don't think that was on my mind. I think first and foremost, I'm a mother. I'm a mother of 3. At the time, I was a mother of 2. And just surviving and getting home to my children was of the utmost importance to me. Being whole and being able to mother them. That was, you know, primary on my list. I didn't have any reason to believe that to think that someone would not believe me. But as things unfolded, it was a very short period of time where I realized that's what in fact was happening.
So, as I mentioned, Diddy has denied being the one who pulled the trigger. But this is interesting, Natanya. Rodney Jones, also known as Little Rod, is now suing Diddy for sexual harassment. That's something that's been in the headlines for the last couple of days. And there's a very interesting quote from his lawsuit that relates back to you that I want to read because it sort of ties all of this together. And it says, Jones claims in the lawsuit, Mr. Combs shared that he was responsible for the shooting in the nightclub in New York City with rapper Shyne. He shared that artist and Mr. Combs' girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, aka J-Lo, carried the gun into the club for him and passed him the gun after he got into an altercation with another individual. So now you have Little Rod in this new lawsuit saying that Diddy told him that he actually was responsible. I mean, what did you think when you read that?
Well, I was incensed for a number of reasons. First and foremost, for the past quarter of a century, he's vehemently denied that he was responsible, even though I knew wholeheartedly, and as so many others who were in the club that night, we all knew he was responsible. A lot of people were afraid for their safety, justifiably so. I mean, the history that has occurred in the last 25 years proves that they were justified in being afraid. But I wasn't afraid. I wasn't afraid because I still bear I have 9 bullet fragments remaining in my face. So when I saw that count 128, that's actually count 128 of the lawsuit. When I saw that on a podcast that was analyzing all of the counts, I knew I had to speak. I had no intention of going viral. I was just getting it out of me. I have a mantra, having my say. There was a time a few years ago where I had a talk radio show called Having My Say. And that's very important to me. I believe everyone is entitled to have their say. Far too often we don't hear people or listen. And so I just wanted to get it out of me because it was like an audible, deep breath that I needed to take. And I made the TikTok video not expecting it to go viral. Went to pick up my daughter, came back home, and she's like, and I literally told her, I'm like, well, you're probably going to see it tomorrow. I made a video on TikTok. Maybe 100 people will see it. By the time we got home, she said, Mommy, it was 70,000 people. And I could not believe it. But it was time. It was time for me to speak. I'd stayed quiet for 25 years. It was my time to speak.
Only did Jennifer Lopez allegedly bring the gun to the club, now we're also looking at years later, Cassie coming forward and saying that Diddy forced her to carry a gun with her when they went out to different events. So again, I think that this is more along the lines of when you look at this from a domestic violence lens, from the standpoint of the abuser being very controlling and demanding certain activities to prove loyalty, to basically put yourself in a bad situation where only he can be the one to save you, basically. So in seeing that, the parallels between J-Lo's experience and Cassie's experience, number one, it brings more credibility to what Cassie said in her pleadings. But also, again, it causes us to look at Jennifer Lopez and be like, some of the comments she made about the end of her relationship to Diddy, in terms of, well, there was infidelity and, she kind of skirted the issue a bit. But when you start to look back at her comments, you start to think, ooh, were you in a domestic violence relationship with Diddy, much like how Cassie ended up in a domestic violence relationship with him?
It's not just artists that Lil Rod named either. He specifically mentioned Prince Harry, the Duke of Sussex, in court docs. It reads in part, quote, Mr. Combs was known for throwing the best parties. Affiliation with and/or sponsorship of Mr. Combs' sex trafficking parties garner legitimacy and access to celebrities, such as famous athletes, political figures, artists, musicians, and international dignitaries like British royal Prince Harry. Why even name Prince Harry? There's no allegations against him or anything, but why bring him up?
I think it may have been a move to bring more credibility to the filing and say that, basically he being Diddy, was using his fame, fortune, and influence to insulate himself. So he was able to legitimize some of the activities he was doing by having these lavish parties, bringing all these A-list celebrities, but somewhere in a back room or somewhere in another wing, horrible things were happening. So the fact that Prince Harry was there does not necessarily mean he was participating in what
other people listed in Lil Rod's lawsuit. That's people like Diddy's chief of staff, Kristina Khorram, who Lil Rod compares to Ghislaine Maxwell, the longtime companion of Jeffrey Epstein. Lil Rod says Kristina Khorram ordered sex workers and prostitutes for Mr. Combs and ordered and distributed ecstasy, cocaine, GHB, ketamine, marijuana, and mushrooms to Mr. Combs and his celebrity guests who were present on his rented yacht and his homes in LA, NYC, and Miami. This is referenced in Diddy's indictment too, saying members and associates of the Combs enterprise, including high-ranking supervisors, security staff, household staff, personal assistants, and other Combs business employees, facilitated the freak-offs by, among other things, booking hotel rooms for the freak-offs, stocking the hotel rooms in advance with the required freak-off supplies, including controlled substances, baby oil, lubricant, extra linens, and lighting. Federal prosecutors also allege these associates arranged travel for victims and commercial sex workers, delivered large sums of cash to Diddy to pay these sex workers, and even scheduled the delivery of IV fluids. Mentioned in Lil Rod's lawsuit is Young Miami, who dated Diddy from 2021 to 2023. According to the lawsuit, Young Miami's cousin assaulted Lil Rod during the Thanksgiving holiday in 2022. It reads, quote, "Young Miami's cousin burst into the bathroom and began groping Mr. Jones. She started undressing and attempted to straddle him and have sex with him in the presence of Mr. Combs and his staff." Similar to Prince Harry, there are no allegations against Young Miami herself, so there's probably no worry of charges being filed against her. Talk about Diddy without mentioning Cassie, the one whose lawsuit blew the lid off Diddy's alleged scheme. She filed civil suit against Diddy last November under the New York Survivor Act, meaning any sexual assault survivor could file suit against their accused predator, and the statute of limitations didn't matter. Cassie's lawsuit was settled just one day after it was filed, but it was still made public, dropping a laundry list of bombshells about Diddy that the public hadn't previously heard. Cassie's lawsuit outlined years of abuse by Diddy, starting when she was just 19 years old, and at the time, he was 37. According to her suit, Diddy was prone to uncontrollable rage and frequently beat Cassie savagely. Cassie alleged Diddy forced her to use drugs and would physically beat her, rape her, or force her to have sex with prostitutes. Then there's the gun allegation that on at least 2 occasions, Diddy demanded Cassie hold his gun in her purse. The lawsuit goes on to state, quote, "There was no clear reason why Mr. Combs required her to hold his guns, except to reinforce to his young girlfriend that he was violent, powerful, and dangerous." This echoes a similar allegation made by Lil Rod about Jennifer Lopez's part in the 1999 New York nightclub shooting.
So in closing, I guess the takeaway for me and the takeaway from a lot of people that's gonna watch this video is we ain't got no clue just how far this case gonna go and just how much this case gonna open up and expose how many people, how far reaching it is. We ain't got no clue. But just based on this past week since Diddy was picked up by the feds and arrested, it's gonna be a lot to come out. I think we can glean that much from just a couple of days as far as how much information that came out. We don't know how, and you know, if and when this go to trial, which I think is gonna go to trial, I don't really see a situation where he can kind of avoid that. I just think it's gonna get messy. My thing is how they gonna mitigate the damage of, you know, as far as the witnesses, who they name, and if these people that they name have to give depositions, or, you know, how they gonna keep the people that's not being charged protected by all of the damaging information that may or may not come out about them. So I think it's gonna be a messy situation no matter how you slice it. And so we just have to wait and see. The trial ain't even started. We don't know when that's gonna be, but all we know now is just every day is just more and more information leaking out, coming out. And I mean, just this week, I mean, look how much information that came out. He done been denied bond twice after offering $50 million. GPS monitoring, being pretty much pinned down to trying to be able to travel between 2 and 3 different states. He done surrendered all of his passports, not only his passports, but the passports of every member in his family that had passports. And they still bucking on giving him a bond. I have no doubt that he'll try to make an attempt to get bond again. The longer he sit, the more the more chances he gonna have for trying to get a bond. His attorney's gonna keep trying to get a bond. That's costing him money. I think he got at least 10 pending civil suits, one for at least $100 million from some dude. So, I mean, even if he worth $1 billion, if you hemorrhaging money, 50 million, 100 million at a time in civil suits, that $1 billion can go quickly when you find yourself in a situation like this. So, you know, it's a whole lot more to come. It's a whole lot more to cover. The more information come out, I try to see what's going on with it. Try to see if I can put something together and bring it to y'all when I can get it, man, and put it together. So, hey, man, y'all tell me what y'all think. Y'all be smooth.